Daf Yomi, Tractate Menachot, page 13.8, top of the page, with the words Hatulamali Ilechod Ilechod Avoshin Shedak Lechod Kamash Mananus Mitzaref Mirei Shedeseh V'Shemat Amidah Tikatoni Mechatzi Zayis Bechutz Kechatzi Zayis L'Mochol Pasul Kachatzi Zayis L'Mochol Kachatzi Zayis L'Mochol Pigul. According to Abaye, why do I need this Mishnah here? If you will suggest that this Mishnah is necessary, as one can infer from it, that if one intended to partake of half an olive bulk the next day, and then intended to partake of another half an olive bulk the next day, both from an item whose typical manner is such that one partakes of it, the Mishnah teaches us that they join together in order to render the offering pigul. This suggestion can be rejected, but you already learn the halacha in this case from the first clause of the latter clause of the previous Mishnah, as it teaches half an olive bulk outside and half an olive bulk the next day. The offering is unfit. One can infer from this that if his intent was to consume half an olive bulk the next day and half an olive bulk the next day, it is pigul. If you suggest that the Mishnah is necessary for a case where one intended to consume and burn, meaning that the Mishnah teaches us that the matter itself, that intent to consume, does not join together with the intent to burn, this too cannot be. The reason is that from the inference of the first clause of the Mishnah, you can already learn the halacha in this case, as it teaches, if one intended to partake of an item whose typical manner is such that one partakes of it, the offering is rendered pigul. This indicates that if his intent was to consume an item whose typical manner is such that one does not consume it, the offering is not rendered pigul. Dehashda Ma le'echol v'le'echol davar she'ein darko le'echol amart lo mitzaref le'echol ul'hakzir mibayef. The Gemara explains how the halacha, that intent to consume and burn do not combine, can be inferred from the Mishnah. Now, consider if, when one intended to partake of an item whose typical manner is such that one partakes of it, and to partake of an item whose typical manner is such that one does not partake of it, you say that his intentions do not join together, despite the fact that both of his intentions refer to consumption. Is it necessary for the Mishnah to teach that intentions to consume and burn do not join together? And the Gemara responds, yes. Gemara responds, yes. Although the Mishnah teaches the halacha of a case where one intended to consume an item typically consumed and consume an item typically not consumed, it was necessary for the Mishnah to teach the halacha of a case where one intended to eat and burn. As it might enter your mind to say that there, where one's intentions referred solely to consumption, the halacha is that his intentions do not join together, as he intended to act not in accordance with its typical manner, since he intended to consume that which is not meant to be consumed. Divahai ki ocheka b'chashiv, uvahai ki ocheka b'chashiv, emas tarev, kamash melan. The Gemara continues, but here, where his intent was to consume half an olive bulk and to burn half an olive bulk, where with regard to this half he intends in accordance with its typical manner, and with regard to this half he intends in accordance with its typical manner. One might say that they should join together despite the fact that each intention concerns only half an olive bulk. Therefore, the Mishnah teaches us that such intentions do not join together, and the Mishnah can be explained even in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis. Hadron Allah kol haminachos. May we return to you this chapter of kol haminachos, and we move on to the next chapter called Hakometz es Hamincha. Hakometz es Hamincha, Mishnah says, Hakometz es Hamincha lechol, Shirea o lahakti l'kumtza, lemachar moide, Rav Yossi bazeh, shuhu pigul v'chayav l'koreis. Lahakti l'voinos lemachar, Rav Yossi on l'pasul v'mekoreis, v'chachamim oimrim, pigul v'chayav l'koreis. The Mishnah says, this new chapter, the Mishnah says, in the case of a priest who removes a handful from the meal offering with the intent to partake of its remainder or to burn its handful the next day, Rabbi Yossi concedes that in this instance, it is a case of pigul, and he is liable to receive karet, which means excision, spiritual cutting off, receive karet for partaking of it. But if the priest's intent was to burn its frankincense the next day, Rabbi Yossi says the meal offering is unfit, but partaking of it does not include liability to receive karet. And the rabbis say in a case of pigul, it is a case of pigul, and he is liable to receive karet for partaking of the meal offering. Amru lo, mashina zo min hazevach amru lahen, שהזבח דמו ובשרו ואמור ואחד ולבוריה איה מן המנחה. The rabbis said to Rabbi Yossi, in what manner does this differ from an animal offering, where if one slaughtered it with the intent to sacrifice the portions consumed on the altar, the next day is pigul? Rabbi Yossi said to the rabbis, there is a difference. As in the case of an animal offering, its blood, its flesh, and its portions consumed on the altar are all one entity. Consequently, intent with regard to any one of them renders the entire offering pigul, but the frankincense is not part of the meal offering. Okay, that's the Mishnah, and now the Talmud. The Gemara questions the terminology of the Mishnah. Why do I need the Tana to teach that Rabbi Yossi concedes in this instance? Let the Tana simply state, if one removes the handful from a meal offering with the intent to partake of its remainder or to burn the handful on the next day, Rabbi Yossi says that the offering is pigul and one is liable to receive karet for partaking of the remainder. Mishum Rabbi Yossi Omer Pasul ve'mekoreis. The Gemara responds, it was necessary for the Tana to teach that Rabbi Yossi concedes because he wants to teach the latter clause of the Mishnah that if his intent was to burn his frankincense the next day, Rabbi Yossi says that the meal offering is unfit, but partaking of it does not include liability to receive karet. Mahu de tema tama de Rabbi Yossi mishum de kasover in mifaglim v'chatzi matil afilu reishanami kamash balan to Bahai Modi. Turn on to 13b. Okay, the Gemara elaborates. The reason the Tana links the two cases of the Mishnah is lest you say that the reason that Rabbi Yossi does not render the meal offering pigul is because he holds that one cannot render an offering pigul with the intent that it concerns only half of its permitting factors. And consequently, since the burning of the handful and the frankincense render the remainder of the meal offering permitted for consumption, then even in the first clause of the Mishnah, where one intends to burn the handful the next day, Rabbi Yossi should hold that the offering is not rendered pigul, as the intent does not refer to the frankincense as well. And now, turning to 13b, it says, Kamash Milan de Bahai Modi. Therefore, the Talmud teaches us that in this case, Rabbi Yossi concedes that if the handful is removed with the intent to burn only the handful on the next day, the offering is rendered pigul. Accordingly, Rabbi Yossi holds that one renders an offering pigul with intent that concerns only half of its permitting factors, and the offering is not rendered pigul in the case of the latter clause for a different reason, as the Gemara will discuss later and in the next video.